Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the YouTube channel, My Chat series. Tell us, what is private aviation industry and who benefits from this industry?
Private aviation is a global aviation sector. In Malaysia here, it's very active. We have numerous aircraft here which are privately owned and flown privately by corporate companies and private individuals for their jobs and for their businesses.
Sir, I've also have heard that private aircrafts are used for medical purposes. Could you please explain a bit more further?
Yes, sure. The private aircraft are used for what we call medical evacuation services, which is a global organization again. Each company has an EMS, an emergency service, that can send these aircraft wherever they want to pick up people wherever they want to go for medical urgency, for blood transfers, for organ transfers. These big aircraft are used for that, and also small aircraft, and these are used all over the world for this sort of use. Also, there is what is called HEMS, which is Helicopter Emergency Medical Services, and HEMS is for the shorter route, where they're used in various companies in the world, what we call swoop and scoop. So they land on the site of where an accident is on a road, and they pick the people up and take them to the nearest hospital, whether it's a head injury or whether it's a leg injury.
So the interior is designed for this purpose. So it means only particular aircraft are being used.
Correct. We inside these aircraft, everything has to be certified because they have to be approved by general aviation and business aviation and by the certifying authorities of the country that the aircraft is operational in. So the interior of the aircraft is actually designed and certified for emergency medical use. You can't just bring somebody in, a patient in, and fly them on an EMS operation without the interior being certified. This is with stretcher, with medical kit, with oxygen, with defibrillators. Everything will save the patient. There's what we call the golden hour in aircraft. The golden hour is you've got to get the patient to the hospital within that hour, if we can. That's why we use corporate jets and why we use helicopters.
So what is the difference between a commercial flight and a private aircraft?
Well, a commercial flight is basically when people are paying to go on the flight, whether it's a charter, or whether, like for instance, you come along and you say, right, I want to go to Langkawi tomorrow morning. We can provide an aircraft for you to go to Langkawi, and you will tell me how many people you want in the aircraft. You want to say how many days you want to go, and then we'll either leave the aircraft up there, if you're like 2 days up there, we leave the aircraft with you, or if we don't leave the aircraft with you, we'll bring it back and then come back and pick you up. But you're actually paying for the aircraft all the time. It's out on charter with you, and that can be a local one or it can be an international one. Wherever in the world you want to go to, we can charter the aircraft for you. So the difference is, private is just for you're not paying for it, except the owner who is paying for it for his own aircraft. You're chartering it, so you're chartering the aircraft with a crew, with everything, and that comes under different rules. That comes under what's called AOC, which is Airline Operators Charter. So it's an that is the regulation. So every operator here who are selling their service for charter have to be governed by the Civil Aviation Authority. So the aircraft have to be governed, the pilots have to be governed, the maintenance have to be governed, everything. And you still do with private aviation, but it's not as regulated as it is under an AOC operation.
For the private aircraft, is there does it make difference? Like private aircraft must have this number of seats and the commercial has this number of seats?
No, some of the private aircraft are as big as 747s. There was also one private 380 owned by a Saudi prince or royalty. So it doesn't matter, but what does matter is that when you're going somewhere, the aircraft has to be commensurate with the number of people you want to fly. There's no good if you've got 3 people and you're in a 20-seater. There's no point. So what we try and do here, we try and measure the actual aircraft. We tailor the aircraft for the mission. We don't try and sell you something which is crazy and lots of money when you don't need it.
So it's not only for leisure vacation purpose, but how about the businessmen? Do they charter the aircraft?
They do, yes. They charter the aircraft regularly, and that's probably a lot of the business that happens in Malaysia and around the world. They charter the aircraft, so what happens is they, like I said a little bit earlier on, they will ring you up and they'll say, I want to go to wherever they want to go to at whatever time, how many people, how long they want to stay, and then we provide them a quote. And then that quote is looked at by the client. He decides maybe he'll negotiate, and then he'll go from there. And we'll either take the charter or we won't. And people usually have to make a decision very quickly because these aircraft aren't available immediately. You know, they're used all over the world. The availability, yes. They're never always available. The right one for the right job.
If someone wants to fly internationally with the private aircraft, how will be the immigration procedures?
It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. When you go internationally with a charter or a private aircraft, you have to go through exactly the same. However, you won't normally go through the terminal. You go through what's called the private aviation section. Like on this airfield here in Subang, we have a private terminal where the aircraft can come into, and they get pulled through the customs and immigration very quickly. It's a private service, but still you have to go through the scanner. The immigration people are there, the books are checked, the passports are checked, and usually we set this up like the day before. So the immigration people know who's coming, what time they're going, so it's all set up before, so there's no delays. So it's quicker. Yes, it's quicker than the commercial side.
Okay, sir, on the road, okay, so many cars, so many transportation, we know that we have a traffic light to control. And what about this commercial? You have commercial flights, you have private aircraft like this. So how do you communicate? To whom you communicate on the ground, and how these things are being controlled?
Okay, well, there's 2 ways of looking at this here. For general aviation in the private sector, for small little aircraft, they're usually flying low level. So they're flying with visual flight rules. So the pilot is looking at where he's going, so to speak, and but they're also under a radar control. So wherever they're flying, they're under control. They have to be talking to someone in the control tower through the radio in the aircraft to the control tower in the nearest location where he's flying. Then there's another type of flying is in the lanes. This is the air traffic lanes. So if you can imagine, in the air there's lots of lanes, and everyone's going from here to Langkawi. Well, lots of aircraft will do that, and they have specific heights, specific lanes to go on. Going outbound, say from Subang here to Langkawi, it's at a certain height. Then coming back is another height. And the navigation is done by navigational aids. And nowadays, I'm sure if you come to find the location where we are, you've used your GPS. You've used your Waze to get here. That's right, yeah. Well, I've got a Mr. Waze now. The voice changed recently. So we use GPS navigation. We use specific instruments in the aircraft to provide distance from certain locations, and GPS, and lots of ways of navigating the aircraft. So it's very, very safe. All the airliners do the same. Business aircraft do the same, and general aviation aircraft do the same. But the GA aircraft are usually lower level for the smaller aircraft.
There's always a standard that rules that they have to follow, so that's how it's being tracked.
Correct. And with the bigger aircraft, like the aircraft you see at Subang Airport, in terms of the executive jets, these are all pressurized aircraft, so they can fly up to like 40,000 feet plus. So they're flying in the same lanes that the airliners fly. They're controlled exactly the same way that the airliners are controlled, and it's very safe. The air traffic controllers do a great job of maintaining this separation, both in height and horizontal distance. So it's a hard job for them, but it's done. It's just like a car, but much more regulated.
How is the interest of people in experiencing private aircraft?
Well, yes, there are a number of flying schools where someone can come along and do what we call a trial lesson or an experience flight.
Certain time, like half an hour, 1 hour?
Yeah, you can have 20 minutes, half an hour sort of thing, whatever suits you and your pocket. But half an hour is probably the minimum that you can do. And you come along to a flying school and do that. Or you can hop on a little helicopter for a little pleasure flight around KL. Yeah, pleasure flight or a scenic flight around KL. We used to do this in KL and operating out of Tidiwangsa, but that's closed now. So you can come along and get on a flight very quickly. You just have to pay.
We were talking about the overall industry and the rules and regulations. How is the industry in Malaysia? So now, please also tell us about your business. How long you are established here, and what is your unique point, and what is your strength?
Oh well, I'm an old man in this now, and
I believe great experiences there.
Well, I've been in the business since 1968. I got my pilot's license in '68 for fixed wing, and then in 1972 for my helicopters. I've been working for many manufacturers over the period of time. I've got lots of hours flying on fixed wing and helicopters. But the basic thing about the company here is I like to give my expertise to clients who really are not versed in aviation and they need the hand holding. So I look after them, I explain them what aircraft they need, what aircraft they'd like to have, what aircraft they would keep them safe and so on. And basically we're a one-stop shop. So we can do everything from looking at the aircraft, buying it for them, maintaining it for them, or we don't maintain actually, we suggest the maintenance organization, we manage it for them, and we control the aircraft totally, if that's what the client wants us to do, and we charge them accordingly. So we're a one-stop shop. I also am under contract to run a number of helicopters here in Malaysia for a group, a very well-known group called JAG Helicopters, and we run the Robinson distribution here for Malaysia and Indonesia, and we've just acquired the MD helicopter distribution for Malaysia and Indonesia as well. And these are models which are popular general aviation type models of helicopters. And on the fixed wing side, we're very active in managing different aircraft for clients, whether it be jets, whether it be private aircraft. So we're a one-stop shop basically, and I can go on for hours about what we do and how we do it, but you need a team of experts, a team of people who know the business, and to ensure that the client actually gets value for money and is not going down a line where he spends money and in a year's time it's wasted.
So I wanted to ask this. I heard this many times, but I don't know really what is it. What is black box?
Oh, the black box.
When they relate to a flight, what is black box?
The black box isn't black; it's orange. So it's a device which is on board most large airliners, or most airliners actually, which detect all the phases of flight, and it's mostly in commercial airliners now, where in the unlikely event of an incident, the aircraft is monitored. Everything is monitored all the way down to any incident on this aircraft. So after the incident, this black box is totally protected. It's like armor plated, and it's in the nose of the aircraft. So it's usually one of the things that you can get all the equipment from, all the flight data from, if there was an incident, and in the unlikely event that you couldn't get anybody back who was on the flight because it's had a catastrophic accident, they'll find out why. And I have to say, back in the early 50s, there was a big accident with one of the old airliners that were flying at the time, because it had square windows. And it became a very successful aircraft at the end, but there were 2 or 3 accidents that they didn't realize what they were. And eventually they found out there was a crack on the windows. And after that, they started making the black boxes because they couldn't detect what the problem was. And they had to put the whole fuselage in a big water tank and pressurize it and to find out what happened. So they cycled it like a pressurization inside the cabin. And eventually one of the windows, there was fatigue crack came, and that's how they found out that the aircraft was lost. Now things have changed. That's where the black box comes in. It's a black box which you just connect your I'm oversimplifying it, but you connect your computer to it, and it runs down all the data of the last minutes of that flight.
And I see in your website you also talk about drones.
Yes, we've also got a little drone organization. We're affiliated to the Malaysian Sports Aircraft Federation, where I'm actually the head of gyrocopters for the Malaysian Sports Aircraft Federation. And this is where we are working with the Civil Aviation Authority right now to regenerate this sector of aviation. It is currently all over the world now, sport flying. Sport flying is the fastest growing type of aviation in the world. Gyrocopters.
Sports flying.
Sports flying. Yeah, and sports flying is a slightly lower level of flying, where it's in sports flying there's gyrocopters, light sports aircraft. And don't get it wrong by saying they're sporty or anything like that. They could be little 2-seaters, little puddle jumpers, we call them, for the client.
During the National Day, there'll be some aircraft, they'll be showing some stunts and funs on the air.
Yeah, these are usually either big jets or the military jets, because I hear them at my house going over. So they're usually the military jets on that side of it. But there is smaller stunt flying aircraft. But when we say sports, we're not saying they're going to be looping and this time. It's a sector of aviation which is sports aviation, and it's a sector which is a lower cost aviation, ultralight aircraft, experimental aircraft. And again, ultralight and experimental doesn't mean that they're cheap and nasty or they're unsafe. It just means that they're below a certain weight, which comes under a different certification category. So we're working on that in Malaysia now. Malaysian Sports Aircraft Federation is championing this within this country, and we're looking at various locations for a new airport that we're going to be putting in country here, because soon people will be telling the small aircraft to come out of places like Subang, because it's getting much more active with the bigger jets and also the airliners.
As an establishment, you have spoke about your uniqueness, your strength, and your progressiveness all these years. So I also wanted to ask, what is your weakness? But I leave it there. If there is any, at any other establishment, I'm very sure that you have all your progressing strategies to just keep on progressing, sir. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Happy to help anytime.
One, two, three.
Cut. Aviation sector.
Sorry. Control. And what about this commercial? You have commercial flights, you have private.